keeping the barbarians from the gate.
I got into the labor movement not because I wanted to negotiate wages. I got into the labor movement because I saw it as a vehicle to do massive social change to improve the lots of people.
Let's take these son of a out and give America back to America where we belong. Thank you very much. Thank you.
As far as I'm concerned, the Tea Party can go straight to hell. I am a real American. Fight for the rights of every man. I am a real American. Fight for what's right. Fight for your life.
Welcome into the program on this Wednesday morning. I'm Brian Summerfield. He's Trucker Randy. We are your defending fathers, and we are just going to start it right out of the gate like a sprint today. We've got Congressman Dan Benishek on the phone with us from Washington, D.C., and thanks for joining us this morning.
Hey, Brian.
Hey,
Randy,
good morning,
there,
Dan.
too?
How are you?
Oh, yeah, he's there.
Yeah, okay, good.
Good morning, sir.
Morning. A little chilly in D.C., but not like it is up north, I think.
Negative 20s and 30s from what we heard across your area up in the UP. So
Yeah, I know. It's 19 below in Iron River yesterday. Well, it's good they're getting snow, though.
it is, and we set it up where if somebody wanted to give you a question, they could easily just send us a message on either of our Facebook chats or on our Defending Fathers Facebook. And so if you're ready to get going, the big question that a lot of us have is over the weekend we started hearing word of this debt ceiling limit being the topic of conversation on Wednesday as far as that you guys were going to be discussing it and possibly something happening. What can you give us the latest on the Hill on that whole situation?
We're trying to figure out a way to get the Senate to pass a budget. Okay, I mean, the long-term spending in this country has been out of control, and a lot of the problem has been the fact that the Senate hasn't produced a budget in almost 4 years. So we have a plan to demand that the Senate produce a budget, and along with a short-term extension of the debt. So that's what we're doing. In other words, no budget, no pay. So we're going to put the Congress's pay in escrow until they pass a budget or the end of the Congress.
Now, the first question I have on that is when I read that, is the first thing that went off in my head is the 27th Amendment.
Well, it doesn't really stop the payment. At the end of the Congress, they'll have to get paid because you can't alter the pay to Congress in the same term, with legislation because it has to wait till the next term.
So you're saying that you're not changing the pay, you're just putting it in an escrow until they do the job, and that's okay.
I mean, according to the people that wrote the bill, there's specific language in the bill dealing with the 27th Amendment. I mean, the purpose of that was so that people didn't vote themselves a raise. You know what I mean? And that they had to face an election after they voted themselves a raise. That was the reason for that amendment in the first place. And we're just trying to force the Senate to produce a budget. I mean, these guys have gotten away without having to vote on where they would cut spending and what they would do for a budget. And we're trying to hold them to account. I mean, we want them to be so embarrassed that they'll have to pass it, and then we'll have their votes on record as to what kind of a budget they'll actually produce.
Okay.
Right. Hey, Dan, can you hear me? It's Randy.
Yeah.
Hey, good morning. We did a little poll sampling, though. We had questions on our Facebook page, and it came back overwhelming for you personally, our congressman, not to vote for this bill. It was like 25-0 just for a couple hours that we sampled. Where are you at right now as far as your thinking on how you're going to actually vote yourself on this bill today?
Well, I'm leaning as a yes.
Okay.
Because of the fact that we want to see some action in the budget. I want to see spending cut. All right, the Senate, the president hasn't had any spending cuts. We need to get the Senate on record and have their votes made to show what kind of a budget they're going to actually produce. I mean, we and in 2011 and in 2012, which gets our fiscal house in order over a long period of time. I know that. We're looking to balance the budget within 10 years. Okay, that's our goal.
Here's one of the problems we're having. Breitbart put out a story yesterday. Now, I need you to research this, or unless you know the answer. According to Breitbart, they're saying that this bill doesn't just raise the debt ceiling, it actually suspends your guys' constitutional authority to have a debt ceiling. It actually raises it to infinity over the next 3 months until May. Is that accurate story? Or
No, that's not accurate. There's two conditions on the raise of the debt ceiling. Number one is the time. We want to have the time be specific as far as May, being May 19th. And it also only allows them to pay debt that, bills that come due. It doesn't allow them to incur new debt, only allows them to raise the debt ceiling enough to pay the debts that come due.
That are currently on the books.
Right.
Okay, because this story has raised a lot of...
well, we had a lot of discussion about that in the conference yesterday, and, a lot of people also had questions about that, too. Why don't we put a specific number on it?
Right.
All that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And frankly, I kind of, wonder about that myself. But, the people that are doing this, Dave Camp and Paul Ryan, have researched it extensively, and they think they have the language as tight as they can to be sure that the president doesn't have any loopholes to jump through, because everybody's worried that, the president's going to find some kind of a loophole and jump through it. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of concern about that.
Oh yeah,
we're just trying to get the
coin.
We're trying to get the Senate to do something. You know what I mean? And we think we have a good amount of leverage because we're going to have spending cuts on March 1st. Okay, March 1st, the sequester automatically kicks in, which there's going to be across the board spending cuts to government. So that's puts us in the driver's seat because those spending cuts are going to occur without any votes.
And this bill here doesn't suspend those spending cuts, correct?
No, those are going to take place. That's one of the reasons that we're doing a short-term extension is to get this sort of delayed so that we have the real debt ceiling talks are going. I mean, this is a short-term extension. It's only going to go till May. The president wants unlimited debt. We're not going to give him that. Okay, but we're going to. The sequester kicks in March 1st, and that's the high ground, I think, and we have to be fighting on. We have the House. Okay, we don't have the Senate. We don't have the White House. You know what I mean? If the Senate doesn't enact a budget, or they send, they take this and they send back a clean debt ceiling extension, we're not going to vote for it. I'm not going to vote for that. You know what I mean? I want to see some action. I want to see where the Senate says, well, this is our budget. This is how we're going to deal with our debt. If they put out a ridiculous budget, the American people are going to see, how bad they are. I mean, we've had discussions in the House. We've passed budgets that make sense. I mean, you can argue with, we cut something that either shouldn't be cut or we didn't cut enough here. But the budgets that we've passed actually bring us to fiscal responsibility and tilt the debt line so that it gets us out of debt over the next 40 years. Now, I know that's a long time, but there's a lot of debt. At least if we tip that, right now the way the debt is going, it's going to go off into infinity unless we do something. Our budgets, tilt that debt curve down so that we get us back into shape. It's just managing money, just like every family in America has to do, and we're trying to force the Senate to produce a budget that the American people can look at. They can look at their senators and say, you voted for this or you didn't vote for it. And, I think that's the first step in getting our debt under control. I mean, I agree it's not perfect. I mean, I agree that I wish there was huge spending cuts in it, but the Senate's not going to pass that.
I wish I could have come up with this idea because I'm not as smart as the person that came up with this, but over the weekend I read something from Newt Gingrich, and he said that if you do not raise the debt ceiling, And if the House passes some continuing resolutions that specifies exactly what spending can be made. So a continuing resolution that says we are going to pay the military, a continuing resolution that we are going to pay Social Security, a continuing resolution that we're going to pay Medicare, and make them one at a time, very specific, very narrowed, that if the debt ceiling isn't raised, it's going to force spending cuts because with the money that's left, one, the president isn't going to be able to play around with those items that he always throws out there that the press loves to salivate over. But it controls exactly what has to be paid, and then what's left, then they have to figure out how to handle the rest of it.
No, I completely understand that way of thinking, and apparently that's what they've been doing now. In other words, that we would have reached the debt ceiling months ago had they not been, for example, not putting money into the pension plan of federal employees. I mean, they've been dealing with this money management stuff already, and I always thought that we should be able to service the debt ceiling with the money that's coming in.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Just let's pay the debt, we don't default. Let's pay Medicare. Let's pay pay the things that we have to pay, and then by better cash management, deal with this debt ceiling. But according to all the discussions we've had with Mr. Ryan and Mr. Camp, that that's just not going to work.
Well, one of the things, Dan, when we sat down with you there, a couple Saturdays ago, you said definitely that your position at that time was, you wouldn't vote to raise the debt ceiling unless you had some, spending cuts. You didn't know what they would look like. You didn't know exactly what it was going to be, but you're confident because we're in the first district. The feedback we're getting is that your district wants you to vote no on this. If they have enough votes to get it passed, they'd like to see you vote no. Maybe perhaps like Justin Amash and Kerry Bentivolio and a few others might vote no. They're saying that they'd like to see you stand up and say no spending cuts. I'm not going to vote for it.
Yeah, well, that may be the people that are writing in. Let me tell you something, Randy. We need to be united on this, okay? We need to have every single Republican vote for this, as far as I'm concerned, because if we lose this vote, okay, this is the most critical vote, I think, frankly, of this part of the Congress. Okay, we need to hold the Senate responsible to produce a budget. We needed to send something to the Senate that they would take and not throw back a clean debt ceiling. If they throw back a clean debt ceiling raise, it would probably pass. Okay, because all the Democrats will vote for it, and then some Republicans will vote for it. So we need to send something that the Senate will have to pass. Okay, and if we send something that they're not going to pass, and they just send back a clean debt ceiling raise, it'll probably pass. That's the problem. Okay, that's the problem. I want to see spending cuts too.
Right.
We have spending cuts on March 1st. We have the sequester kicking in. That's the ground that we can fight on. Maybe changing that and extending that sequester for the long term, but keeping that number in place, the $974 billion, which is several billion, hundreds of billions of dollars in cuts from the current budget over the next 10 years. So that is the high ground. I mean, I understand, believe me, but we have the House, okay? They have the Senate and the President. So we need to make strategic plays here that make sense. Okay, now I don't particularly understand all the strategy, but I do know that this is going to be horrible if the Senate, if the Senate can't even produce a budget on this, we're going to withhold their pay. I'm not going to vote for a clean debt ceiling. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't want that. We need to try to get. We need to make progress
send them
here.
This bill,
What's
just
that?
so I understand and the audience can understand what you're saying. If you send them this bill and they try to amend it to cut those sequestration out, where the spending cuts won't take effect March 1st, then when it came back to you guys from conference, you would vote no against it.
We gotta be firm. I'm certainly not going to vote for a clean debt ceiling raise. That's it.
Right. Okay. Good.
That's it.
I've got
this is a short-term thing to get the Senate to show their hand. I mean, they're going to have to produce a budget. If they don't produce a budget, then the entire American people are going to say, "What?"
Yeah.
You know, I mean, this is the whole purpose of this, is to make the American people realize and make the Senate actually do something. You know, the president keeps talking about fiscal responsibility and blah, all that stuff in his speeches, but he doesn't act that way. He hasn't put forth any spending cuts. The House has put forth spending cuts. We put forth budgets.
Well,
I can agree that I would wish that the budget was balanced tomorrow. Our goal is to have the budget balanced in 10 years.
Right.
Listen,
we got to go to a break, and you.
I gotta have to go myself.
Yep.
Right. We just wanted to tell you, Dan, since our meeting, and you've been posting a lot of stuff on Facebook. We greatly appreciate you doing that with us.
Well, I'm trying to be more proactive in that regard. I mean, the first thing I got back to Washington, we got together with Kyle and said, let's get this stuff out there so people have a better understanding. Because really, it is a problem with not understanding what's going on, and you hear so many different things. And believe me, I'm hearing it from every direction myself and trying to make the right decision.
Well, there have been some great discussions on your Facebook pages, and I know a lot of people are getting involved in it. We've been throwing it out there to get involved with other people, and I think that they're starting to really appreciate it as well. I've got 2 quick points, and then I'll let you go. One comment from somebody said 70% of Republicans are against your last vote when 85 of you voted with the Democrats. I think that's a sentiment we're seeing all over the boards on the debt ceiling. On that. And the last thing, another one on national defense, why are we sending military aircraft and tanks to Egypt, especially in the times that we're in right now, any way that we can stop that? So,
no, I'm with you on that. I have to say that, in that fiscal cliff vote, the taxes went up on everybody on January 1st.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've got some comments on that, too.
Everybody, it went up.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I didn't like it, but the vote that I took, cut taxes on 99% of people in the first district. I regret, the fact that any taxes were raised, but we got, 99% of people had their taxes the same. So, I couldn't vote against that.
Congressman Dan Benishek, really appreciate your time this morning. Go fight hard for the fighting first.
All right, man. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Stick around. More to come. We are your defending fathers.
The way it used to be, then you need to check